about Commerce Cloud. My name is Renee, and guess what? You're not gonna ask me anything because I'm not alone here. I have some amazing friends, which is Nathan Marcus and Andrew Lawrence, who are amazing product managers about commerce. So before we start, Nathan, Andrew, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Go
Sure.
ahead, Nate. You can go first. Yeah.
Great. Sure. So, hi everyone. Nate Marcus here. I am the senior product manager for Composable Storefront. We'll talk more about this, but think of it as our best-in-class headless / front-end as a service offering in Commerce Cloud. I've been with Salesforce for a year and a half, and my previous, decade-ish was running technology and product teams in the retail travel e-commerce space. But really excited to be talking with you guys. And Andrew?
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Lawrence. I'm also on the product management team over all things related to developer experience on top of the commerce platforms. So all things APIs, the composable storefront, and a number of other things. The Commerce Cloud came from an initial company called Demandware that Salesforce acquired back in 2016. I was part of that acquisition when it happened back here. So I've been here since then.
Which is great. Maybe we can just speak Deutsch. If it was a German company, so maybe you want to.
It was a German company, but I don't speak German.
Sadly, okay. Maybe I'm going to try that later. So I think commerce is a super exciting topic. I think most of us came just out of Cyber Week, right? Black Friday. I think that's an area where commerce really was shining. And a lot of the stuff that you and your teams are building actually was fully in production and in action. Now, ask me anything. We have a couple of slides so that the team can explain you also more about their focus areas. Or we want to say, if you have any questions, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. Please put them into the chat in LinkedIn or on YouTube. And we have some amazing people in the background who monitor all of that, and we'll feed those questions back to us so that you can ask us anything, and we will hopefully have a lot of answers to you. Now, let me quickly bring up those amazing slides. And as usual, we have a forward-looking statement because you may ask questions about things that may be not in product yet. So please make any purchasing decisions really based on what is currently generally available. Also, I want to make a call out. Please connect with Salesforce developers across all technologies on the Trailblazer community. We put a link in here. Just join there, so you will find a lot of peers that you can engage with, and also connect about other technologies if you want to. Now, it's not about me. It's about you all.
Yeah, so let me kind of give you, we just have a few slides, kind of give a quick introduction to Commerce Cloud and kind of where Nate and I fit into the whole breadth of what Commerce Cloud is. So Commerce Cloud covers a number of different areas, and it's all about really powering commerce everywhere with data and AI and the CRM, and with trust, of course, across everything, which is a big piece of everything we do. The Commerce Cloud kind of breaks down into two very high-level areas in terms of running digital storefronts and then having embeddable commerce apps within the core system and within other places. Nate and I kind of focus in on the digital storefront side and on what's happening there. Specifically in the box mentioned there about templates and composable and headless, that's all what we deal with the day in and day out. There are a number of other areas with digital storefronts around conversational commerce and shoppable marketing that we have other product managers that are working on within commerce. But Renee, since you mentioned it, let's jump to the next slide. I mean, with commerce, it is really about trust on the platform and what the platform is able to do. So we did just come out of Cyber Week. We had phenomenal growth from our retailers and other customers running on top of what we call our B2C commerce platform. We saw over 1 billion shoppers just during that Cyber Week. And of course, the sales and things are still continuing on right now. But Cyber Week from November 21st to November 27th really is the biggest piece or the biggest part of commerce through the year. One thing that Nate and I are really happy about is down the corner, we had almost 12.5 billion API calls that came into the system during that period, which is just over 30% growth from last year. We continue to see more and more customers getting involved with the APIs and operating their storefronts headlessly, separate from the platform, making those API calls to get done what they need to. We also have, if we jump to the next slide, so kind of drilling in a little bit further about where we are and what we have. It's all about, for us at least, going fast, and what we have called our composable storefront. So the composable storefront is kind of a stepping stone into building headless on top of the B2C commerce platform. It allows you to get into the headless, get moving quickly. You can grow your conversions and average order value with faster kind of load times and things that happen, decreasing your total cost of ownership, because a number of the things with the composable storefront we provide for you out of the box, including a place to host that front end that you're operating. And then really being able to take control of your brand experience, which is all what going headless actually means, is being able to get your developers kind of in a pro code motion to be much more integrated with being able to flex their muscle at building the experience that they want and that the business wants with your storefronts. And digging in one level down deeper on the next slide, specifically our composable storefront comes with a few different things. We have a progressive web app kit, or a PWA kit, that's all built in Node.js and React, operating. It's actually an open source project that's out there. You can go see it today and see what's in there. We offer our managed runtime to anyone that's happening there, which is essentially a platform as a service where you can run that progressive web app from. Managed runtime is all backed by AWS and Lambda. It is super fast. We can get things such as like 60-second deploy times and rollback times in the managed runtime, so you can quickly make changes to your storefront. You could make changes to the storefront, put them out there, see if they're operating. If they're not, you can quickly roll them back. It really makes things a lot more flexible for developers in building. And then a number of different developer efficiency tools with the SDKs and our on-demand sandbox environments and the CI/CD processes, and all those things kind of roll up within our developer experience area also. And I think that's the last one. I didn't want to bog this down with a bunch of slides, but just to give you a little bit of context of where we're coming from and kind of what Commerce Cloud does at a super high level. But then I think we can just open it up for QA and just start letting people ask us anything.
That's exactly the point. So thank you very much for that introduction. I remember the early days, 2017, when like the first headless ideas came up in the first versions of the SDK. And, I followed that not closely, but loosely, I want to say. And I've been really impressed on what has changed over the last couple of years, really, right? So I think, especially like with the addition, I think it was the addition of Mobify, really, that then also brought in the PWA toolkit, and then combining headless, the SDKs, the CLI, especially in combination with PWA toolkit, was really a change, a paradigm shift, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really has made a number of big changes with things happening. I mean, the reality is APIs for the B2C commerce platform have existed for 10 plus years. But it is really only since like 2020 or so when we really started to double down on creating a new API platform, new API structures, really making it able to build headless on top of the platform. You mentioned we made an acquisition of a company called Mobify. That's where the PWA kit and the managed runtime came from. It was an interesting thing because we kind of realized as we were building out APIs and making them all available that we didn't have a good way to like show people how to use the APIs efficiently. And we had people asking us, okay, so you want us to use these APIs, but you want us to run it where? Oh, well, you should just buy your own thing and run it. But they didn't like that either. So the acquisition of Mobify really did two things. It made it so we have now this open source PWA kit where you can see how best to use the APIs and operate them. And then we give you a place with the managed runtime where you can actually run it. So you don't have to go get your own hosting service to run the storefront. If you don't want to, you can run our PWA kit in the managed runtime.
Cool. I think it makes a lot of sense because, Cyber Week and things, that means also scale and managing everything.
Yes.
Just taking off the load is also pretty important.
While like cloud infrastructure generally is highly available in a way that it wasn't 10 years ago, scale and optimization of that infrastructure is still challenging, right? And ultimately, like we would suggest for many businesses not a differentiator, right? Like you need to scale, but that's table stakes. And I think that's the beauty of the composable storefront offering is like we are handling the table stakes of scale, security, maintenance, allowing you to focus on what actually differentiates and grows your brand. For most commerce operations, storefront facing features, customer experience, right? And, and
Cool.
that's what we set you up for with Composable.
Awesome. So I think it's now time for me not to have me talking around. It's really I want to look at what my colleagues already found on questions. I think the first one I want to pick is Node.js React the only option for commerce developers?
No, like Andrew said, like if you're there's been SDK, there have been APIs for some time, and there are SDKs in support for for Node specifically, just because it's a common paradigm for the Jamstack, the JavaScript top to bottom stack is a common paradigm. But if you wanted to build a web application on top of Commerce Cloud in in Python and Django or whatever, like sure, like you can do that. Absolutely. It's just a question of like the degree to which we give you a starting point. So building in React and Node is just a popular choice for web developers, and so we provide you the most advanced starting point for that. But there's no reason you couldn't build in other technologies or stacks.
Okay, cool. But that also means, and maybe I want to add on this question also, is you just said you want to give the most advanced opportunity for people already to figure out how to work with the headless APIs. Is that also, if I go to the PW Toolkit GitHub page, I actually see the full implementation in there already, no matter the language I'm going to use, really?
You see the full implementation manifested as a React Node application, but that doesn't mean that you would interface with the APIs differently. It's just a convenience, right?
Okay, cool. I think people also can try it, right?
Yes.
Correctly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Andrew said, it's an open source project, and so there's kind of two phases to this. But if you want to try it out, all you have to do is go download the open source, the PWA kit. It's a project generator in essence, and it will produce what we call the retail React app, which is that end-to-end storefront experience on all the modern tools that we just discussed that you can, modify, tweak, explore, whatever you want. If you wanted to actually run a production version of that to deploy it, you would need to provision manage runtime, which is part of your Commerce Cloud contract. It's actually, it's not like a different SKU or anything. It's baked into your Commerce Cloud contract. But of course, that is a different step. But to get your hands dirty, just go to the repo, and we can link it here too.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So the next question, and this comes from Jeremiah on LinkedIn, is, are we talking about B2B or B2C in this use case that you're just working around?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So with Commerce Cloud, there are a number of different things, but there is B2B commerce, which runs on top of Salesforce Core, the core stack, and there is B2C commerce, which is what came from the former Demandware acquisition. So the composable storefront today does run against B2C commerce. There's not an option currently for it to run against B2B. It's something we're looking at for the future. But yeah, we are mainly with the composable storefront, at least with those APIs, they are against the B2C stack today.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's also important depending on the business use case that the company may have. If they want the own platform route and using LWR and Experience Cloud, or if they want to go on B2C with Headless.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So we have another question, and then maybe really specific and technically. So you're going to tell me if that's something you can answer, and it's from so bear with me, Akanagama on YouTube. And the question is there a Salesforce integration for adding reCAPTCHAs on the form, or do people have to use Google CAPTCHAs?
So there is not a specific out-of-the-box integration to reCAPTCHA, but usually this would come in the context of IDPs of the external login provider, and that is supported by our authentication framework called SLAS. And there are examples in the docs about how to integrate a third-party how to integrate a third-party authentication or login provider, though nothing specific about recapture. So.
Okay, cool. I think that API was released, I think 2 years ago ish. I remember I worked with someone.
The
Yeah,
login
exactly.
API,
Okay.
yeah, was released
Okay,
2 years.
cool.
But we can provide you the docs for.
I think, yeah, I remember a
Right.
blog post on the Salesforce Developer blog also about that one, right after the release, which was pretty exciting. Cool. So we have another question from Tyrone on LinkedIn. Thanks, Tyrone. And that is, from what I read about e-commerce cloud, it's Commerce Cloud. It's charged by hour regardless of you being online, which is called downtime. So what are the key benefits of Commerce Cloud that mitigates against these fees? Is that true? Or I'm not really involved into.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the licensing model for B2C commerce and I believe for B2B also is usually one of two things. It's the number of orders you put through the system, or it is the GMV, the gross dollar value that you put through the system. So licensing is all based upon how many orders you put through the system. So not a by hour thing. So I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, no, licensing for B2C commerce is all GMV or number of orders.
Okay,
based.
cool. Which I think makes sense because of the higher the volume, the more infrastructure needs to be provided on managed runtime, or MRT, which is the acronym, which you may find also in docs. So just sharing.
Yeah, because we make acronyms for everything. Right? That's
Every company does that so much. So I think it's always great to bring it up. Cool, awesome. So another question would be, like, what is the pro and con of using the Composable storefront with the PW toolkit compared to running your own headless stack? Really?
Yeah. Happy to take a crack at this, and Andrew, chime in, please, if you with any extra flavor. But I think, like, ultimately it's a question of control. It's a scale of control or flexibility. And then on one spectrum, and a scale of cost to own and cost to build, right? And for some teams, you might decide that you need ultimate decision making about every element of the technology solution, right? Say, hey, I want to run this in Python or Django, like I was talking about earlier, or something, right? Like that has to be part of my solution for compliance reasons or something like that, right? In which case, like that's a constraint. Like we have constraints on like what we allow in Composable storefront. So that would put you into the realm of like, I need to make every decision about what's in this ecosystem and what's in my technology stack. And that would be like a pro for building your own infrastructure, right? And owning your own infrastructure is that control. On the other hand, though, comes with high control and high flexibility comes high cost, right? You're going to need to procure, manage, maintain, upgrade that infrastructure. And it's non-trivial, right? Like it's not uncommon for a significant commerce merchant to spend $1 million, $500,000 on hosting fees alone, right? And then forget maintenance and security concerns. With the Composable storefront, where we've made some decisions about the technology solution, right? But you're offloading all of that risk, cost, expense associated with maintenance, right? So specifically, like we've made some decisions about the UI framework. You could change it, but we've made some decisions about that. And we have aimed for something that's modern and accessible, but everyone has their choice about UI frameworks, right? And as a consequence of that, like you get a robust storefront right away. So we start you from like, if it's 10 steps to build a commerce storefront, we're going to start you at step 5 or 6, right? And so there's huge benefit to that when we think about go-to-market and again maintainability. That I think is very appealing for most commerce operations, but it's admittedly it wouldn't be for everyone depending on what your particular technology needs are. So again, just think of it as a sliding scale between control and flexibility and cost of ownership and cost to implement. I think like what we've tried to do is make modern forward-looking choices about the platform. It's all cloud infrastructure. It's highly scalable. it's modern. You're going to see like Webpack and React and modern libraries there. So hopefully, like, you're not trading too much, but that's, I think, how I would think about it if I was an engineer on adopting it.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think that's, having been an engineer for too long in my life, I'm that old. I think that's always the thing, like, what are you going to build for your own because you can or want to, or sometimes you have to, or just picking something that is readily available, and then you fine tune based on your own needs. I think that is also really appealing. It's also sometimes you have to learn the hard lesson, right? I can do it myself, but then at some point, like, oh no, I should have taken the other route, really.
Yeah. Always think, I think we as commerce operators always want to think about, like, well, what's the business outcome I want to create, right? And what technology do I need to facilitate that business outcome? But for, I think, many commerce operations, the guiding goal is like, how do I get more conversion? How do I grow how do I grow incremental revenue? And I think we've given a compelling platform to, like, focus on that goal.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So looking at the next question, and that's from Anshuman on LinkedIn. Thank you for that. It is, what is the future roadmap for scappy or scappy? And that is also an acronym for, you're going to tell me.
So there are two API, call them system structures, whatever you might, for getting to B2C commerce. The Open Commerce API, or OCAPI, is the API that's existed for 10 plus years, and it's still there and still running and still maintained, and still sees a few updates. In 2020, we introduced a Salesforce Commerce API, or scappy, that's a new API infrastructure on our side on how it's operating, with the idea of making it be as easy to use for headless applications as possible. And it's continued to grow since 2020. It's had a lot of updates. Lots of times I get people who ask, like, when should I use scappy and when should I use OCAPI? From the product management person in me, my answer to all that would be, you should use scappy for everything because it's the new thing. But I understand also that customers are still using OCAPI. Like, we're not sunsetting OCAPI. It's not going away. So you don't need to go and, like, retrofit everything that you've done so far. But I probably would advise, if you're starting something new, look at the newer APIs and using them. There's starting to be a lot more benefits to using them. Like, we just recently introduced a whole new caching system for how they're operating in terms of how we're caching them back within our web adapter layer. The responses that you can then start getting from those APIs begin to be much better. We've introduced some new APIs in terms of, like, filtering and how you can operate. There are changes coming with the search APIs to make them easier for you to use to create, like, product listing pages and those type of things. So new enhancements are coming to that scappy API structure. So if you're doing new things, that's where you should be looking. And then as you can, and as you touch other things, maybe you've done an OCAPI before, then you can start to look at maybe moving them to use scappy. But OCAPI is not going away. You don't have to go make a mad effort to retrofit everything.
Cool, thank you. So that also means, and maybe that's a follow-up question on my end, I recall a time when there was no parity between those APIs, so sometimes you had to pick, right?
Yeah.
Like, first running in scappy and then OCAPI, and you had to combine everything. Based on what you just said, it's the parity is there.
They're getting closer. There are probably still a few use cases where you'd have to go use OCAPI, but they're starting to get closer. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. I think that's a good clarification, because I remember the early days, and I was like, I want to try the scappy, and then no, I had to switch back to the other thing. Yeah. And, like, it was always, like, going back and forth. If we're getting really closer, I think that's really also, as you said, a compelling reason to really look into how can you set up everything on the new APIs.
Yep, exactly.
Cool, thank you. So the next question is, there are a lot, so let me find one that we may haven't picked yet. So this question is coming from YouTube, and it's coming from Udayagiri. And the question is, what are the payment gateways available with B2C?
Yeah, there's a number. I mean, I could tell you what's just what I'll speak to is like what's popular. But I know we have a really robust cartridge system and ISV ecosystem that probably the world's your oyster. But cyber what we see commonly. We see commonly things like Adyen. We see commonly PayPal. We see commonly Visa CyberSource as the big payment gateways, and those all have established integrations with Commerce Cloud.
I think the other one I would add in there is that like Commerce Cloud itself out of the box can connect to Salesforce payments. So the Commerce Cloud has a payment system that is operating, and so there is out of the box support. There is out of the box support within B2C commerce for Salesforce payments and for operating it. I'll toss in the small caveat there that we don't actually have it support within the PWA kit yet. So that is something that's on the roadmap to come. But yeah, B2C commerce in general is connected to Salesforce payments also.
Cool. You dropped a term that some people may not know. Sorry, Nathan. And that is cartridges.
Yeah.
Explain yourself,
Sorry,
Nate.
let me validate that. So yeah, a cartridge, of course, like you have a set of features and storefront implementation that we provide you, but you're going to extend it, right? You're going to extend it because you want it to match your particular business goals, and also you want to integrate a third party. And cartridges are just a system by which Commerce Cloud has for a long time made it easy to extend the platform capabilities. Not the only way to do it. Actually, Andrew talked about like new scappy features that are like only the scappy, and a great, really important one is like custom APIs. You can roll your own custom, fully authenticated REST APIs. That's a pretty cool feature. Just a quick plug for that. So there's other ways to extend the platform, but cartridges is just a common way. And they follow like a path system. So you can kind of stack them on top of each other and get like code overriding code. It's pretty cool. And that's been around for a while. And when I say like some of those cartridges come from the community and some of them come from vendors, right? Hopefully that clarifies what I was getting at there.
Okay, cool. So, and I think extensibility, I think it's a really good term. Like, as a developer, I immediately think about plugins, really, right?
Yep.
You have like a system, and you can plug in your own functionality, really, right? Which I think is really important. So, cartridge, maybe an old German word back then from the acquisition. And, I'm German, so we find weird terms for great things. So thanks for the explanation for that.
Cartridge comes from us older people who remember putting video game cartridges into video games.
You gotta blow on them first, of course.
Yeah, you'd have to blow on them.
Same in B2C commerce.
Yeah.
Also blow on them.
Atari or video
Yeah,
game,
exactly.
or VHS kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Andrew, we're that old, that's what it is.
Yeah, I know.
So cool. So the next question, let me pick one, is performance is critical to my storefront success. What considerations or capabilities do you provide to ensure a highly performant storefront experience out of the box?
Yeah, I mean, performance is king, right? Like there's a long running understanding about the relationship between performance, and there's a lot of ways to measure, but we could talk about time to first byte, time to interactive, but performance generally, and conversion. If you have any questions about that, like we could share like studies that have a well-established this from Google and others, Amazon and others. But it's also complicated, right? Like there's especially in the modern stack, there's so many layers, and we've tried to think about these. We spent a lot of time thinking about these layers, actually. I'm going to try to talk to them and quickly, because this is a big topic, right? So one layer is the APIs, right? And as Andrew said, like scappy in particular has gotten a lot of love recently at the API level for performance specifically. Talked about the JWO, the web tier caching that's been introduced. Obviously, that's hugely important because a request payload doesn't need to make its way all the way to the database in the pod in that sort of situation when you can hit a cache, right? So there's API caching. There's also like capabilities for controlling the payload and the query itself in Scappy. Some of that's actually brand new and coming soon, what we call select on the API calls, which allows you to trim the response payload, but also trim the trim it at the query level to a degree as well. So that's like one quick answer on the APIs. Another answer is on the CDN level, right? So we have caching out of the box, and I'll speak to PWA Kit specifically or Composable specifically, but we have caching out of the box in our CDN. So you can of course cache the API, but you can also cache the entire page response and have that served from the cloud infrastructure directly to your users intelligently, which is a huge win. Another level, of course, is like rendering, and the PWA Kit itself is a isomorphic single page application. There's some fancy words there, but it's a web application that runs on the client and on the server. It can serve essentially a complete page on both the client and the server. And what does that mean? It means that when a user arrives on your site, what's going to happen is we are going to render it server side to begin. And so you get like a really fast time to paint or time to first byte. The page gets served and you get a part of the web application client. And as they navigate, you're going to accumulate more parts of it. So there's like a bundle optimization there as well. There's so much more. I'll try not to, there's a lot more that could be discussed about performance, but what I'm trying to convey is that the teams here have thought a lot about this at a lot of different levels. And again, like API, CDN, web application itself, we've done a lot to tune the default implementation so that it's great for your customers.
Cool, thank you very much. As someone who's really passionate about web performance, and also like Google, I think latest this year started really to make sure if your website is not performant, time to first byte, time to first paint, all those things that also really impact your SEO. I think that is really key to bring to the table, right? And server-side rendering is also very much appreciated, right? Because who needs just sending plain HTML over the wire, highly compressed with gzip or broadly is really important, right? Cool. You meant CDN. That I guess that's part of the managed runtime.
Yeah, there's multiple layers of CDN, so this gets a little complicated quickly. But I'll just say, like, the Composable Storefront offering has its own CDN capabilities. It by default provides page level caching on top of the API caching in addition, right? And it's globally distributed and highly scalable, and that page caching is like part of how the PWA Kit operates out of the box as well.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, even with like large gigabit wires, slow store is never a great experience, right? So like bring it closer to the edge, really, in this highly scalable way. Very much appreciated, I guess, for every consumer. Cool, yeah. Thank you. So we have another question that is coming from, let me find one that we didn't touch from a topic perspective. Yeah, so that may be a tricky one. Not all the easy ones, right?
I gotta go. Sorry.
It's like, it's late. I should go. So that's coming from YouTube. And the question is there an opportunity to get a developer account to try it out for B2C commerce? We spoke about it a lot over the last couple of years, Andrew.
Yeah. It can be a tricky one. So I'll give you the official kind of stance of where things are. So the first thing I'll say is like to try things out, especially with the Composable Storefront. Like you can go, as Nate mentioned earlier, it's open source. You can download the project. You can get it running on your machine. It's connected to a commerce instance that we maintain. And so you can interact with that and play with it, and anybody can do that. To get an actual B2C commerce instance, there are a few ways to do it. One, obviously, be a customer and then you get one. But the other ways would be if you're part of an SI partner organization for B2C commerce, they should have sandboxes that are available. If you are a prospective ISV partner or someone looking to build like a independent system vendor things on top of commerce, there are pages that are out there. There's a page somewhere out there where you can apply to get a trial sandbox to run through that process and to build things for Commerce Cloud. If you go to training sessions that we have, you will get sandboxes for a period of time for the training session and for slightly thereafter. We also have a number of open source initiatives that are just beginning. We'll talk about some resources kind of here at the end, but our unofficial kind of developer community has, there are a number of people that want to build open source projects for B2C commerce. And so we have a mechanism we can get sandboxes for people who are building open source projects. And then for everyone else, there isn't an easy way to get a trial organization at the moment. We just don't have a really great system around getting trial orgs or trial sandboxes for these. There are opportunities if you have a contact within Salesforce, like an AE, an account executive or account manager or partner manager, reach out to them. They can reach internally and we can work to get trial sandboxes available. Even if you're not a B2C customer, if you're like a sales or service or whatever customer, reach out to your AEs and they can connect in through the commerce system and we can work to get some trial environments available.
Cool, thank you. I believe for B2B, which is built on platform, that should be just available, right?
Yeah, in B2Bs, you can get it as part of, if you get sandbox orgs or whatever, yeah, you can make B2B available to those. Yes, correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the PW Toolkit has, I think it was last year or the year before, the edition that you basically can like clone it, run it against a defined instance, right? So you can really at least try out the APIs and really work against the predefined setup, which is, is much better than just having a locally defined app that is fed by JSON files.
Sure, yeah.
Cool. So the next question I would like to bring up, the most hottest question, I guess, in every conversation that everyone has is, no, it's not about tacos. It is, AI seems to be a big topic in commerce. So what are the AI areas for Commerce Cloud?
Nate, do you want to take a stab at this first?
Sure, yeah. Okay, there's a lot. So generative AI, right? Like the question asked, right? Generative AI is a hot topic right now. I want to first establish that Salesforce and Commerce Cloud specifically have been in the AI game for a long time, right? Like predictive AI has been part of our repertoire and feature sets for I don't know how many years, but many years with Einstein. And it's in the Commerce Cloud context, like we serve, I don't know, someone keep me honest here, like millions of recommendations, more than that, I think, recommendations powered by our AI. Yep. So AI is not a new game to us. Generative AI, of course, offers a ton of new capabilities, right? Totally different kind of features than predictive AI. And we have a number of initiatives here across the portfolio. I'm going to talk just specifically about, and because commerce is a big thing in Salesforce, I'm going to talk specifically about what's available for B2C enterprise commerce, right? There are two really important features coming, as I won't say whether they're pilot or GA, but they're coming soon to either pilot or GA. How about that? We can follow up on that one. Commerce Concierge. I want to lead with Commerce Concierge. So Commerce Concierge is a new capability that is storefront customer facing, that allows your customer to explore and discover product through the power of generative AI. So imagine, and I do this with ChatGPT now. Like, I'm like, oh, like I have this is the kind of thing I'm looking for, right? And it can offer me products. But imagine like that same solution plugged into your product catalog on your website, right? That's Commerce Concierge. So I'm on your website. I'm trying to understand, like, I'm trying to describe my needs from a product, perspective. Instead of having to like browse the catalog and use search, I can get those products surface me much more intelligently and transact with them much more easily within the confines of this concierge UI, right, on the storefront. So I think it's going to be a huge accelerator for, like, it's a new way for customers to explore the product, right? And whenever we're talking about e-commerce, we're talking about incremental revenue opportunity. We're talking about how to stop people from falling out of the process. One place they always fall out is in discovery. They don't find what they wanted, right? And this is a new angle to attack that. So Commerce Concierge coming to B2C enterprise, not far from now. We'll get you the exact dates. The other one I know very specifically because it's something that I'm specifically working on, which is generative page designer. All right. So the pitch here, as you probably all know, there's a classic tension or challenge for marketing and development teams. Marketing wants a new landing page. They want a new visual expression, right? And they need it tomorrow because the campaign's tomorrow. And there's a classic development bottleneck here. So what we're trying to do is overcome that bottleneck so that merchants can use generative AI, explain what they want, and get valid code that they can run in their storefront to bridge that gap. And this is really cool. I mean, like, so I've led headless builds and headless sites in the past, and we had, a component library system is another answer to this. And that's a great answer. And, but like, you always are in the hook for like a new component, a modification to a component. And what if you could empower your marketers to manage that more directly? Enter generative page designer. So this will be a feature that works with both SFR8 or template sites as well as PWA-Kit headless sites. And it'll live in our first party CMS, and that's called Page Designer. And a marketer it's a drag and drop editor, right? They'll be able to drag a new kind of component onto the page, describe what they want. It'll interact with our trust layer and will produce you back valid code. You could edit that code depending on your development workflow. You could require, that a developer looks at it and edits it, or they could save it and publish it. And we basically have like these wrapper components that can render it faithfully on the React or template website. By React, I mean PWA-Kit website. There's a lot more to say there on both of those topics, but that's some of the key initiatives coming to Commerce Cloud Enterprise in the not too distant future.
Cool. Yeah, I think I saw a demo about that at Dreamforce. One of the Dreamforce sessions. And I was really impressed, right? As a developer, I'm using generative AI a lot, like with Einstein for developers, and it's Einstein, not Einstein. Just saying. That is, it just speeds up the process, really, right? And putting that more into the hands who actually design the experience, right? And as a developer, I want to have a hand over and I want us to look at the thing. I trust everything, but still, as a developer, before I deploy to production, maybe someone wants to review that. I'm really looking forward to this because I think, like, especially for enhancing and speeding up development time, as you said, time to market is really key in every business. And these days, I think even more, that's super exciting. And thank you for the call out, because everyone talks about AI, and there's a distinction. Predictive AI has been around since some time, right? I mean, since many, many years. And that's sometimes not so visible these days because everything is generative AI, right? And we've been all in the game for AI for a really long time. Cool. So we have only 50 minutes and a variety of more questions. So let's see what to pick. Okay, we have one. Cool. So does Commerce Cloud allow a drop shipping process feature or integration to a drop shipping application? And that tells me nothing because I have no idea about the whole business. I learned many new things just with the AMA.
Yeah, I think the main answer to that would be like out of the box, Commerce Cloud does not have a drop shipping thing. I know there are App Exchange cartridge packages for B2C commerce, specifically for dropship, because I know of a few customers that are doing similar things. Commerce Cloud as a whole also contains an order management system. So if you have Commerce Cloud order management is another piece that has it done directly. You can get integrations to dropship providers through order management system, but order management itself can also handle the workflow that might come with whatever happens with the dropship thing. So a combination of either B2C commerce and some ISV partner just for dropship itself, or B2C commerce and our order management thing, and a dropship thing for on the other side is probably the best option for dropshipping.
Should we define for at least Renee?
Should we at least explain?
I'm going to Google it. I'm just going to Google it. No worries. I don't want to take the time away from all our developers who have all the questions. I'm like, because it's on my mind, I have this big question mark. And Nathan, thanks for identifying. It's like, I have no idea.
Very quickly, Renee, dropshipping means the retailer themselves is not going to ship it to you. So you buy something from retailer A, they say, okay, I'll sell it to you. And they talk to supplier B and they tell supplier B to send it to your house.
And pretty sure we Germans would have found like a complicated word with 27 characters.
Probably.
Like that.
Although in fairness, I'm not sure drop shipping like totally is like the most semantic word for that either, but
it's probably not. It's old school.
Cool. Thank you. That's, I learned something new.
Something, yeah.
Which is not around commerce, but kind of it is. Thanks. So another question is, and we brought up caching. So it's from YouTube. In PWA Toolkit, how can we handle the caching from server side and client side? Is it fully automated, maybe, because it's PWA Toolkit?
So the caching I was referring to. So this is why caching is complicated. I feel like this one I'm gonna go short and we could talk more in depth. Whoever asked it, like, let's do this over email because I don't want to confuse people, but or Slack, maybe we can plug the community Slack channel at some point. Anyways, there are even more layers of caching available to you than I described earlier. The caching I described earlier was page caching. That's in the CDN. It's not in the React app itself. It's in the CDN, right? And like I said, the PWA kit's wired up to that by default. There's also caching. React allows for other kinds of caching that this question may be relevant to, and we have some technical docs on this. But I'm gonna leave it at that and say, like, yes, there are more caching approaches that are available to you in the PWA kit, and encourage this person to chat with me about it on the community channels.
Okay, so please still ask our questions still here while we are online, right? And we're going to share the link and how to get to the unofficial commerce Slack community, also as part of the resources, which I'm also a member of. I should potentially log in back. They are the experts, really, the practitioners that you can connect with, which is really great. And it's not it's not hosted by us. It's run by the community for the community, which is also really great that the passionate members who really take care of this and move this product forward. Now, the next question, because it's still an Ask Me Anything, is so how, and maybe that touches a bit already around the question around free signups or free trials, is how should a developer get started today on Commerce Cloud if I just want to start to scale up to learn more really about this? I mean, there's documentation, right? Other elements that you think someone should start to explore if they want to dig deeper in how they can actually get hands-on, or at least like learn about the various different things that they can do with B2C commerce.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of resources that are out there. So there are trails and things that are available out in Trailhead. So that's always a great place to start. We've already plugged and mentioned the PWA kit and its open sourceness, and that you can get started looking at it there, and that'll get you a feel for how the APIs are functioning. You can leverage the API documentation that's out there, and we'll go through a number of resources here at the end. But all those resources will get you places where you can get various API documentation, help documentation. There are Postman collections for the APIs. You might ask, well, where could I run APIs against? You can run APIs against the same instance that the PWA kit open source one is offering. So if you bring down the PWA kit in the open source kit, you'll see that it's connecting to a specific instance that we have out there that's kind of the not really public, but it's like the developer instance that's out there for people to connect to. So you can leverage that. But then ultimately, yes, you will run up against this. How do I get a sandbox thing, which we mentioned earlier. So yeah, reach out and connect with things. If you are a Salesforce customer of any kind, talk with your account executives. They should be able to get you work to get us a trial sandbox that we get set up. Trial sandboxes are usually for 60 to 90 days. And ultimately, that's good to start things. Or if you want to start some open source projects, we can get sandboxes. Reach out in the unofficial community also. There are people in there that have advice. I think I saw somewhere Amalia posted a link to Thomas Tunen's blog post about how to get sandbox and what to do there, which is also a great source as well.
So you dropped her names just for those who don't know. Amalia is the amazing person for the Commerce Crew, who our community person, right? She's an amazing person. I know since a couple of years. And Thomas Tunen is one of our MVPs, actually, based in Belgium. Also a very passionate member of the community around commerce. So you find them on LinkedIn. Amalia Murray, Thomas Tunen, actually Thunen, for those who want to look it up. Sorry, Thomas, for all the requests that you will get in the next 25 minutes. Cool. So we have around 8 minutes. So I think maybe like 2 to 3 questions, depending if it's about caching or not. I'm gonna take one that may be very specific. So we're gonna see. It's on YouTube, and the question is, how can we reduce API call hits? Sounds a bit more like caching, so maybe there's
I see a theme.
The theme, web performance is important.
Yeah, caching is a good answer. But,
yeah.
Andrew, do you want to? I was also going to answer on the ergonomic side, but maybe it's worth. Do you think you would articulate like how do they enable caching for Scappy?
I think that may be an option.
I mean,
right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, caching is definitely the option, and that can be turned on within the system for the APIs, and that will reduce things at the server level in terms of us going all the way to the database. But I mean, in terms of reducing API requests in general, many times interactions with various customers and implementations and things, there are ways to reduce your API calls even just on your own. Like sometimes people get in the habit of just like call the API for everything and don't pay any attention to whether I really need to call it or not. So there's always optimizations that I think you can do within your code to make it so you're only calling APIs, one, when you really have to, and two, that you could even hold things within memory in code on yourself. Calling the same API over and over again, in theory, a cache somewhere in the middle should help you and make it so that maybe it doesn't have to go all the way through. But you should also look at your code and like, don't call it if you don't have to. Even hitting a cache will take some time. Not as much as going all the way through, sure, but even hitting cache will take some time. So if you can avoid making the calls to begin with, do that. I used to always tell people, look, you can write really fast applications if you never talk to a network and never talk to a database. They'll be super fast. So yeah, do those things. Never talk to the network and never talk to the database. It'll be super fast.
Think a lot. I mean, one way to do this is to or one approach is to think a lot about hey, is this data really going to change? Yes, could it change, but is it really going to change? And what are the consequences of it changing? So for instance, if you need to query site preference configurations, for instance, to render your site, maybe you do need to assess hey, what are my configured payment vendors for this locale, let's say, right? Okay, so then when the user arrives on the site, make that query. Don't make it again until they change locales. Could it change in theory, right, throughout the session? Maybe, but it's super low probability, right? So you want to think critically about what data can you persist in a cookie or in session storage, so that you don't need to go fetch it again. So again, that intelligence about thinking really hard about each API call. Are you making it always, or are you making it just sometimes? And the triggers that would prompt you to make it.
How often do it?
I mean, there's also levels of, and this is always a fine line, so I'm not going to give it deliberate. There's a level where you could put things in code rather than going and fetching them from the database. A good example is we introduced a new API recently to get SEO URLs to do redirecting and stuff. And that's great. I mean, it's necessary for people, for admins and non-coding people to be able to put in URLs and get the redirects and get those all. And so then there's an API to go fetch them and pull them back. But if you don't have that many, just put them in code and reference them from there. I mean, there's always a fine line into what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. But those are also other things that you can look at.
Yeah. Does the merchant team need control over this? Is it relatively static and stable, right? Are good questions to answer. We're also to be fair, we are doing work and have work that would have implications here too. So we're constantly tuning and thinking about the APIs to improve the ergonomics, right? Can we make this better so that you don't have to make a subsequent API call? You'll see some changes coming to the search API that speak to that really, really specifically. So it's not I don't want to say everything that you could do is all in client space. We're also iterating the product to make it as ergonomic and as efficient as possible.
Cool. So looking at the clock, I think I would love to bring up the slide with the resources, and you can walk through the audience where they should go and where they can find stuff. We talked about a couple of things. Then you can also make a call out where they can find you on those channels, because they may have more questions than we just able to answer today. So let me hit my magic button, and there we go.
Yeah, I mean, this is really how many there are here. 6 different resources. All of these are really great, and they all have places and things. Some things they do well, some things they do others. I mean, the top one, the Developer Center, is kind of the home base for all things documentation, APIs. You get links to the PWA kit and its GitHub instance. There are guides that walk you through how to use some of the APIs and use cases, those type of things. So that's really top from a documentation standpoint. Same with the Postman collections. You can find them there, some examples. The 2 next ones, the Commerce Trailblazer community and the B2C Commerce Trailblazer community, both out in the Trailblazer communities in general. So those are great sources. You can get Nate and I on both of those places. You can just tag us in there. The Commerce Trailblazer is just kind of commerce in general, lots of things across all of Commerce Cloud, including B2B and order management and all of those things there. And the B2C Commerce Trailblazer community is really focused in just on the B2C product and some of the groups and things that are in there. The biggest one we will probably plug is the unofficial SFCC community. It has the word unofficial in it, and it is unofficial, but we direct people there all the time. So that's a Slack community that's available. Both Nate and I are in there, as well as lots of other product managers and even members of the engineering team are in there, as well as the community as a whole, which is just awesome. There's a great group of people in there just answering questions and helping people out. So that's definitely, if you're going to choose one place out of all of these, like I would go there.
It'd be hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate like how good that is.
Yeah,
and how lucky we are to have, colleagues, both our colleagues and our partners actively in that channel. It's a lot of free, basically a lot of free technical help in there.
Yeah. And then the Commerce Cloud Innovations podcast is just a general podcast. If you're on a train or a bus or an airplane or whatever, and you want to learn about commerce, there are a great number of podcasts that are on there with lots of information about just commerce as a whole, not even specifically Salesforce commerce, but even just a lot of trends and things that are happening in the overall e-commerce space.
Cool. I think recently Amalia also took over the podcast, so you all can listen to her.
She did. She took it over. She jumped in there and said, "I'm taking this over." No, she didn't. But yes, she did. And actually, the most recent one in there talks about how the unofficial SFCC community came to be, which is a great one. If you haven't listened to that one, you should listen to that.
Cool. And with that, I think we're at the end. You will find resources in the Trailblazer community. Just go to www.salesforce.com/dev-community. We're going to do a post there. And with that, I would like to thank you both, Andrew, Nathan. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning more about commerce. See you soon in real life, maybe.
Hopefully. Thanks everyone.
Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us, Renee.